APPR?
Yeah, so the last thing as part of my report is as part of the New York State requirements, the board is asked to certify people who have received the training, gone through the training to be lead evaluators of classroom teachers. So Brad Ashley is a new administrator who will be evaluating teachers. He has completed the training, so you're asked to pass a resolution just certifying that.
Great. So is that what's on the screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Can I get a motion to?
So move.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
That's it for me.
Dr. Kelly.
Congratulations, Brad. I have a relatively short agenda this evening. I'm asking for you to consider substitutes that include teachers, teacher aides, and nurse. We also, unfortunately, are asking you this evening to accept our school treasurer's resignation, Kathleen Lynch. She's really been a tremendous asset to our business office over the last several years, and will be sorely missed. Dan and I have already advertised the position, have had some interviews, and I think there are some real high-quality, viable candidates out there. So hopefully by the next board meeting, we'll be having an appointment for you to consider for treasurer. As you can see, I'm asking you also to appoint her as a substitute treasurer so she can become available to help train our new treasurer. In addition, we had an opening of a maintenance mechanic who had resigned last month, and I am pleased to recommend Jomar Esvedo to you this evening, who was a contractor through A&A and really had proved himself to be a tremendous worker. And so we'd like to bring him on as our employee, which we are allowed to do. And it's really a wonderful opportunity for him. You also have a revised list of co-curricular advisors, as well as a list of our after-school special education employees, and a new A&A contractor. So I'm asking you to consider items A through I, please.
Great. Can I get a motion to accept A through I?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? I have a quick one. So after November 8th, do we have a treasurer if we haven't rehired a new one?
That's our goal. So there is a chance, as I said, we've met a couple of viable candidates. So what we're hoping to do is have an appointment perhaps before you at our long-range planning workshop on November 4th.
Got it. Okay.
That's our goal.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody else? Great. Thank you.
We just closed the books on last year, so let's take a preliminary look at the current year. Things are looking okay. It's a little too early to project where we're going to be in the expenditure side. We're encumbering salaries this month, and we've done that already, and we're still looking good salary-wise. Revenues, we're doing well on sales tax that we anticipate. That number will probably go up during the year. It's a conservative projection for a surplus in the sales tax line after Westchester gave us another 1% increase. Tuition students, we had one drop out. That's not reflected on this report, so that line will go down next month, but we're still looking at surplus in that line. So all told, just in revenues alone, I'm projecting about $200,000, and then once we start looking closely at expenditures over the next few months, that'll only grow, and I anticipate having no issues with meeting our target of $500,000 that we've used for to offset the tax levy with fund balance over the course of the year, which would put us in decent shape as we begin looking at the 2020-21 budget.
Okay.
And then I have some action items. We have a list of non-resident students. And where did my list? There it is. We have 9 non-faculty tuition students, 1 in the elementary school, 3 in the middle school, 5 in the high school. And then we have 27 children of faculty, 2 of which are paying tuition, 8 elementary school, 7 middle school, and 12 high school. So as a matter of course, the board accepts these students each year.
Can I get a motion to approve the list of non-resident students?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
And then the foundation is very generously offering us 3 off-cycle grants in the TV studio, the lights for the auditorium, and then some staff development for curriculum leaders. So I would recommend that the board accept these grants with gratitude to the foundation.
Can I get a motion to accept the 3 out-of-cycle grants?
Move. Second.
Any questions or comments? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much to the foundation.
Moving on to facilities, we already heard that the flood stormwater connection to Meadow Avenue seems to be working fantastically. It's been operational. Sidewalk we're expecting back by October 25th, which, all told, it would have been nice to have it done over the summer, but it'll be done by November, hopefully. And they'll move on from there to the structural steel coming for the Learning Center addition on the upstairs addition up there. They'll work structural steel first and begin that. We'll be retesting piles in the courtyard and hopefully beginning work on a foundation by the end of the month. D-wing roof is ongoing. The asbestos abatement portion is done. They'll be working on the membrane over the next 2 weeks. And then from there, we're still anticipating the Meadow Avenue addition for the guidance wing starting December-ish. And then I have a facilities action item, a change order for Vinco for the library, which is just about complete. The tri-state evaluators have been in there all week. And we'll move the materials back in there next week. We're still waiting on some long lead items, but it won't prohibit us from opening it. And this last change order is for removal and patching of electrical boxes discovered in the slab in the library after the removal of the carpeting. It was reviewed and approved by both LAN and the construction manager, and we believe this is the last change order, which will keep us under budget. It's well within the $20,000 allocation for these kind of items for this project.
So is this a charge against an allowance?
Exactly.
Okay.
And we still have about $6,000 or $7,000 left in that allowance after this change order. And then, let's see, the change order. I guess let's approve
why
this.
don't you do that?
Talk
Yeah,
about
so
the
can
next
I get a
item.
motion to approve? Okay, great. Second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion, comments? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Yeah, so the next thing we'd like to do is talk to the board and public a little bit about the bond referendum. I'm going to have Dan talk a little bit about the finances behind the selling of our bond. As you know, when we passed the bond, there were a number of projects on the list. Our bids came in significantly higher than we anticipated. We went out for a second bid, and while we were able to award contracts, We did have to drop a number of items off the project list for the bond referendum. But because we were able to sell bonds at a lower interest rate than anticipated and it was budgeted for, we do think at this point we are able to go out to ask the public for some additional funds, still within the same, remember when we talked about going out for a bond, we wanted to keep it tax neutral or not have to raise any additional taxes for debt service. So we were still able to do that. If we go out for some additional funds, I'll have Dan talk a little bit about the financing part of that, and then I'll share with the board projects that we were not able to do that I'd like to have included on this next round if the voters approve.
Yeah, as Dr. Montesano mentioned, we sold our bonds at an interest rate of under 2%, and we were actually anticipating more closer to 3.5 or so when we developed this model. Now, these numbers here are our actual debt service moving forward, including our building aid to offset that debt service. If you look at the white cells over on the far right, we expected that to be zero. That would have been neutral to the tax levy with the debt service. However, at this point, we're actually seeing favorable for over the next 4 years, which is before we have more debt service leaving our books, anywhere from $250,000 to $275,000. So I use that number, $250,000, the bottom end, to make sure that for at least those 4 years, and obviously it would be for the years after that quite easily, that we would remain under our pledge for keeping the debt service on any new debt tax neutral to the levy. So that gives us an upward limit of, in my opinion, $252,000 to stay within those limits. And if you can go to the next slide, Connie, I then took that $250,000 number, and instead of 2%, say we have to pay 3% on the next issue for 15 years, which is the term of the original bonds that we just issued. That $251,000 gives us the ability to borrow $3 million and still remain under our debt service commitment. Now, each percentage point on interest is about $20,000 worth of debt service payments. So if instead of 3% we have to pay 4%, that would be $271,000, and vice versa. It would be $231 roughly if we sell our bonds at 2% like we just did. Correspondingly, if we were able to sell these bonds at 2%, we could actually issue $3.2 million. Versus the $3 million at 3% and still stay within that limit. But it's my preference, obviously, to be conservative, leave room for rates moving against us. But the ability to borrow $3 million and issue those bonds within the next 6 months or so takes away a lot of the interest rate risk and allows us to kind of complete our original vision of where we thought this project was going to be. And Roy will have some details of what that might be. But, the principal went against us, but the rates are in our favor at the moment. So all in, we're hoping to be able to do what we first expected to do for the amount we expected to do it.
Okay, so kind of go to the next slide. I'll start to share with you some of the main projects that we were not able to do due to the high bid costs of the original bond, things we had to drop off. And I tried to prioritize them as best I could from the initial list. And for me, the top item is that curtain wall that's by the elementary school playground. If you look at the curtain wall now, it's pictured on the top there. There's a more detailed picture on the right. I mean, that's pretty much what the whole wall looks like now. It's rusting significantly. The thermal envelope is just not doing what it needs to be doing. So we did have an architect rendering of what a new curtain wall could look like. That's the bottom picture. That is more in line with the architecture of our building. I think would make a significant aesthetic difference in addition to improving the efficiency of the thermal envelope. So that would be one of the top things that I would suggest and recommend that we consider in this bond, and if we go after this next referendum. Next slide, please. The next item on the list would be our design and engineering center. We refer to as the innovation center. The top picture represents what it currently is being used for. It's an old boiler room, a lot of storage. The bottom is a rendering of what we want the space to look like. It gives us over 1,000 more square feet of instructional space, and based on where we're going with, in the high school particularly, with engineering courses and design courses, we think this space is desperately needed for us. Go to the next slide, please. And then the next slide will show you kind of just a schematic of that space as well, where there's room for students to work on computers, doing maybe some design work on the computers, and also a fabrication area as well on the other side, and keeping storage. So that was, again, these are all things that were in the original project plan that we just did not, we were not able to get to. Next slide, Connie, please. Before I get the cost estimates, the other item that I'm not showing only because I don't know how to show, it's a chiller for the air conditioning. It's a big box.
Big steel box.
Big steel box that we were hoping would sit right outside that small parking lot area by the auditorium on Meadow Avenue, and that would provide air conditioning for the first floor A and B wings. We had to take that off. So those were the three main projects, and after I get done with this slide, there's some other things that we can consider, you know, depending on how we bid the projects out, and if we get lucky, we add some alternates, we might be able to do some additional stuff. But the curtain wall, these are updated figures that I just received from LAN, and as you can imagine, they're being conservative now with their numbers based on the previous referendum and where the prices came in at. But one of the things we'd like to do is get this going relatively quickly so we can take advantage of a prime bidding window, as well as get the projects going over the summer to coincide with the other work that we're doing. So the curtain wall, they're estimating about $1.25 million. Innovation Center, about $300,000. And that's a little bit lower than what the original bid was that we received, and only because the HVAC work, electric and plumbing work, is already in the current bid. So this bid is just for GC work attached to the Innovation Center. Same thing with the chiller installation. This is just for the installation of it, about $450,000. The plumbing work, electrical work is already included in the current contracts we have with the with our subprime contractors. So if you look at just those three items, including contingency costs, architect fees, construction manager fees, and all of that, we're at about $2.65 million. Connie, next slide, please. Other items that we could consider in this referendum that were not able to be done is the bulkhead in the gymnasium. We had some pictures, so I thought I'd show you what the area that we're looking at for that, which does present some issues during games and volleyball games, where if you hit the ball too high, it gets knocked down. So that was one thing. That came in at about $30,000. We took out the skylights in the new high school lobby area. That was about $29,000 as well. We also included some toilet room renovations that were needed. The bidding on 3 of those toilet rooms were about $240,000, and the front step restoration in front of Bronxville, the middle school entrance, we were looking at that as well. We took that off. That was about a $140,000 item as well. So there are a number of things that we can complete by going out for another bond referendum for $3 million that I think would really, as Dan said, finish up what we really started give us the vision, complete the vision that we had when we first started looking at this stuff. So Connie, if you go to the next slide. So if the board were to approve the resolution tonight, the way the timing would work is we would have to advertise the vote. You can't have it, you have to wait 45 days from the time the publication hits. That puts us in early December. So my recommendation is that we hold the vote on December 10th. It would have to be in the multipurpose room. And we would, of course, let the community know what we're talking about, et cetera, to get everybody on board with this. So that's a timeline. That would, and assuming a positive vote, we would most likely go out for bid on these projects around the second week of January, which is a good time to do it. If you recall, last time we were late in that process, which I think jacked some of the prices up higher than we anticipated. This puts us in a better spot to bid. We do not have to go back out to SCD for approval since they already have been approved. They have a project number, they have a permit, all of that's done. The work is still included under the secret that we did for the original bond project, so that's already taken care of as well. So it's really providing the funding source so we can go out and bid these projects. That's really the mechanism here. So that would be the time frame that we'd be looking at.
Do these last ones, like the bulkhead, do we have permit numbers?
Yes.
We did, okay,
All those things I listed were in that original one
okay,
that we have numbers for, yeah.
okay.
Absolutely. And, depending on how we structure, again, assuming a positive vote, how we structure the bid, we go for alternates so we have a better listing of what we can do.
Yeah,
I think it's important to note that we've been discussing all of this,
Yes.
if anyone is actually watching this, that these are concepts and an idea generally that we've been discussing since we had to make some very hard choices
Yes.
in light of the pricing that we got when we had the bids out.
Correct.
This is not, you're not raising all of this for the first time with us. I don't want that
Yeah, no,
impression created.
I agree, Tom, and thanks for saying that. And, and the reason we're able to do this again is because the interest rates that we got were very favorable. And so we're still within that same, within what we said we were going to do with the public, and that's to keep the tax levy neutral on the debt service. So that's why we're able to do this now.
Roy, what's the communication like, if this gets approved tonight, to get out to
Yeah,
communities so
so-
they understand what we're doing?
So I'm working on a letter now, Mike, that would go out early next week to let people know what's going on here. And then we would continue to put it out in newsletters and such to let people know when the vote is, what it's for, et cetera, and how the mechanism work. But first step for me would be a letter, just kind of general broad stroke letter about what we're doing. I put that out next week.
I would just like to reiterate what's been said. I mean, when we went out with this project 2.5 years ago or 3 years ago, there were a lot of things we didn't know, and we had a long list of things we wanted to accomplish, but the primary mission of everything we were doing was to keep this tax neutral for Bronxville. And we now know a lot more things, including how much things are going to cost. We know what the interest rates are. We've issued a $21 million bond, I think it was, already. So we've taken a number of things off the table that were unknowns, and we now have very few things that are unknowns with regard to the funding of this. So I think it makes complete sense. It addresses, at least it's designed to address, the complete list of things we set out to do in the first instance and still maintain a tax neutral position.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
it would be great to move forward with this in my view. So any other comments or questions? Can I get a motion to approve the resolution in front of us regarding a vote of qualified voters on December 10th?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
I think the next one is the approval of the district-wide safety plan, the adoption of the MOU.
Yeah, if you recall, last month, we had a public hearing on it. We needed to have it out there for 30 days, and now we're in a position to be able to approve that.
Any questions or comments or discussion? That's been previously distributed to folks, so can I get a motion to approve the resolution in front of us regarding the district plan? Safety plan. Second? Anybody?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So I think we've had a number of people comment on the committee reports. We've had the audit. I think the facilities talked about the change orders, so we're good there. Any other comments from any committees? Great. Action calendar, we have a meeting on Monday, November 4th, which is a long-range planning workshop.
At 6 o'clock, just
6 o'clock,
over the
that's-
time.
Yeah. And then a regular meeting just before Thanksgiving. So with that, I'd like to invite any members of the public who want to get up and speak to do so.
Seeing none,
Seeing none, I'd like to take a motion to adjourn.
move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.